The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
Hey, y'all. We are now in the month of June 2024. Now, can anybody actually believe that this is the date and time that we live in at this point? I know some of us are probably not sure how we even got out of the 2000s, much less 2024. But I digress. We are in June again, so we are starting to get into the dead of summer. Depending on where you live, it should maybe be a little easier if you're not as... We're kind of south, but we're not really as south as south. If you're down in Georgia right now, you know what I mean. It's way worse down there. I am in the New England area. You may be anywhere in the world, but for us over here on this side of the globe, this is the summer season. So I decided today that, based on some stuff I kind of dealt with and some conversations I'd have recently, that I would just we'd do a lighthearted podcast about friendship. So I believe I'm going to title this The Logic of Friendship. Very simple, very easy to remember, right? And go over some stuff what kind of people you want around you, how to maybe find friends, how to cultivate friends, screen out people who don't match with us, right? Either because the energy isn't the same or because those people are actually toxic to our well-being. And over the years, how to meet, how you would have met friends or, friends that kind of go by the wayside and, life. People get married, they move away, all kinds of things happen. And so it changes. Your friends change and your life changes. So, the first thing I wanted to bring up was that if you don't come from the best, and honestly, I do believe that a lot of people don't have the best family. I mean, it's just the way it is. Now, it's not me insulting anyone. I mean, it's just sort of like most families, I believe. My generation was raised to believe that all families were very, very functional and very diverse and very healthy. Maybe that's what we thought we were being taught, or maybe that's the message we got. I'm not sure if that's the message they were trying to give us or not, but that's the message that we got. So shows like The Cosbys and thinking about all the different types like Who's the Boss and Family Ties. Oh, 8 is Enough, and even Little House on the Prairie, all kinds of family dynamics that we grew up watching. We probably were given those shows because they were the idealistic view of a family. Maybe we thought, I know I did and several of my friends did, we looked at it as maybe something to aspire to or something that we could compare ourselves to, and of course find that where we were living and our families growing up fell short of this message that we were getting through the TV. But, as I got older, I realized they were probably just trying to show us an idealistic vision or version of something that, we were all living. I think the message got skewed in the way that we took it. And I don't know that was purposeful or not. I just think that's the way that it went, right? So you have a family that you're raised with, and that's not necessarily the best family. My point is, I just believe that most families are probably more dysfunctional than we thought growing up. I think that we thought our family was the only dysfunctional family, or ours and a couple of others were the only ones. But I kind of feel more like it's a majority. There's always, I think, things like infighting, things like drama, things that are unhealthy going on within families. Because, at least in my case, most of my family history was built on social norms and different things that made sense for them in the date and time that they were in and were carried forward. There were some things that my family carried forward that they experienced before they perpetuated. And so 3 and 4 generations in my family were not necessarily healthy and passed on traits that they just learned from their parents and their parents and their parents. And so, generational trauma is a thing. I have a kind of an interesting family dynamic, but to me, friendships, this is just my opinion, you can kind of cultivate your own family. The family you're born with is the family you have. Whatever it is. You can't choose it, whether you're an adopted person or you're somebody who has one parent is, your parents die young, or one of your parents dies young, or you're living as an orphan, or whatever the case may be, you're born into your circumstances and you have no choice. I don't care what anybody says. As a child, you have no choice to be where you end up. But from there, at least, you do have a choice to cultivate your environment and circle that you decide that you want to be around. And it takes us a while as kids to learn this, right? Obviously, there's a learning curve to friendship. We learned some of the basics in school, or at least we did. Obviously, school has changed a whole lot since I went. And I've heard that it's not what it used to be. Although I always take it's not what it used to be with a grain of salt, because people my age will say that about everything. People older than me will say that about everything. People now that are younger than me are saying that about everything. Hey, when I was a kid, blah, 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 blah. I hear somebody that's in their 20s or 30s say that, and I laugh at it because, it was much more demonstrative when I was a kid, which is 20 years previous to them being a kid. But anyway, things happen, life goes on, errors change, dynamics change, the world changes. There's nothing we can do about that. We can't make it what it used to be. Also, what it used to be was much worse and much better, depending on who you ask, than it is now. So all of it's subjective, but you can, with friendships, cultivate some kind of circle that's supportive to you. You can fill in the blanks or the gaps of the things that your family didn't give you, or learn from the family members that you have that are healthy for you, that are supportive for you, that give you what you need, and try to expand on that and find people like that, right? You either have an example of what you want more of, or you have an example of what you need because it's missing, And I think that going through life, we have our family, then we have like our school and our teachers. This is probably the first thing that we experience, or doctors, or our church, depends on who we are and where we are, how we're raised, right? And we do experience all different types of personalities. And before we know any better, we know what's good energy, what's bad energy. We may not necessarily be able to voice our opinion on what we're dealing with, or the energy that we're getting from people. We're not really able to articulate it or understand it, but we do feel it, right? So I think, our earliest friendships come from preschool or daycare, or where we first start as kids. Sometimes it's we go to families, cousins, people's houses within our family. So our mom may take us to a cousin's house or a family cookout or something like that. And so there's the kids that we kind of know within our family circle, right? Then from there, and that's obviously not everybody. I know some people don't have that, in their structure, but then daycare, or we go somewhere where a lot of my friends who had kids, went to each other's houses. There were parties and things that went on like locally within the neighborhood, or within like a small circle of friends, where some people I knew had friends had kids of the same age. Sort of, hey, I'll bring my kids to your house. We'll go here, we'll go there. And a bunch of kids kind of get together in a yard on a weekend, and they get to know each other indirectly that way, right? So you have your family or your extended family as friends, and sure, they're relatives, but if you're the same age as the kids you're playing with, even within your family, they become like a friendship of some sort. Then you have like a daycare, if you have parents that worked and you go to a daycare a specific time every day or a couple days a week or whatever it is, there's other kids, obviously, your age there. Then you've got summer things, social things. Maybe you go to a pool, or you go to a YMCA, or you go, off to summer camp or whatever it is. So these are all different places as a kid that you would meet other children your age and start to like get into the dynamics of what friendship is. You get all kinds of stuff with friendship. You get people that don't want to be your friend for whatever reason. You get that hive mentality. You've got like people that gang up on one another, and there's meanness and all kinds of stuff that goes on with kids. And it's more overt when you're a child, but it's the same dynamic. Honestly, I gotta say, growing up, none of that changes at all. It's all the same. It just changes in how it looks and how it comes across and who it is and, what the event is or the problem is or the issue is or whatever. But it really all does start when you're really young, as the same exact types of dynamics that you end up dealing with when you're in your 30s. I don't know what else to say, because you're always going to run into people that, they haven't gotten right with themselves. And so they just like to make life a living hell for everybody around them, right? But anyway, you kind of understand who you kind of want around you, who you don't. You go through I wish I was friends with that person, but they don't like me because I'm friends with this person. You go through school and you start to deal with who's on what team, and, hey, I like this person and they like me, and we get along and we hang out, we talk, we get along. We have the same kind of interests or hobbies or stuff we like to discuss. And then there's somebody that you also like as a friend, and these two people don't get along. So you have to now choose between one of these two people. This goes on in schools and stuff like that, camp and whatever. So basically, I'm just discussing what are the personal things that you do that as a kid, as you grow up, what do you go through or what's your dynamic? What happens? When you're a kid and when you're younger, I mean, friendships are like accidental. You like almost just meet people. They're just part of your everyday existence, right? There's so much social activity that goes on when you're young because most parents are trying to get you around other kids. Sometimes it's because they just need a break or they want you to, I mean, you need to be socialized as a child. So it's not a bad thing. Obviously, it's a good thing to have all kinds of options for children that you can play with and people that you can interact with as a kid. I mean, it's just better for your personality. But parents, as you're younger, that's kind of something that they push for several reasons. And it happens a lot. So you just run into a lot of people. Then you go into a school and school is just full of kids your age, a little older, a little younger, and you go through 12 years of that. So there's a lot of supply, if you want to call it, of other people to which to become friends with. It's easy because they're going through the same classes you are, they're in the same school you are, they're in the same neighborhood you are, across the street from the school is the same restaurant, whatever. You have a very, very large amount of things in common with people in school. You could take it the way you want. I mean, a lot of people like school, didn't like school. It all depends on what their experience was, right? For me, there were people that didn't like in school that didn't like me. I didn't get along with, or the people that treated me like shit in school that I didn't appreciate. But I did find people that I understood and got along with. And for the most part, I got along with pretty much everybody with the exception of, like I said, 2 people that didn't like each other and forced me to pick one of them. As you get older, you start to go, hey, you guys don't get along. That's not my problem. You figure it out. You know what I mean? I want to be friends with this one. I want to be friends with that one. And if you guys don't get along with each other, don't come to me with that. But when you're younger, they force that on you. You have to make a choice. Which one do you want to hang around with? Which one do you want to be friends with? And it's a bummer, but that's just, again, I think it's just growing pains of being a child and the stuff that you experience, right? As you go through life. Meeting friends is so much easier as a kid, right? And even in your younger 20s, late teens, that kind of thing. And if you go to college, it's the same thing. I mean, there's just people everywhere. There's really there's no way to, unless you really don't like anybody you go to school with, or you're extremely disinterested in a lot of crowds and social activity, which some people are, and that's completely normal. There's just no shortage of people to bond with in these environments, right? Then you've got off time in the summer, and a bunch of kids get together and they go do bonfires, and they go, when we were kids, it was roller skating or, some nightclub or whatever it was, depending on how old we were. So there's just people everywhere. And it's very hard not to end up with a couple of friends in that part of your life. And then as you get older, people get married and they go off. Once you leave high school, it's funny. I always say this. We were sitting in an assembly, what we used to call an assembly, and everybody that went to school with me will understand what I'm saying. I don't know if they still call it that. We were sitting in the auditorium for assembly, and this is in our senior year, and I think it might have been the beginning of our senior year. I can't remember. We had pictures taken, and I think it was our actual yearbook for senior year, and I think we took pictures at the beginning of the senior year for that. I don't know why I remember it that way. Maybe I'm wrong. But we all kind of passed the yearbooks back and forth and signed each other's yearbook, that kind of thing. And we went into an assembly, and they sat and they said to us, listen, you guys are so used to each other, and every day you see each other, and it's like you guys think you'll never not see each other again, and you can imagine not seeing these people every day. When you graduate high school, you're going to start seeing none of these people, and you're going to be very shocked by that. And we were like, yeah, whatever. That's not true. We'll never do that. That's not going to happen to us, And it really was amazing how all of a sudden we were, it's, when you think about it, technically, it makes total sense. I mean, you're in the same class every day with the same people at the same age going through. If you're in the same city and you don't move, you go from like just about kindergarten to like senior year with these people. And some of them, depending on what you do, if you have like college studies or you do vocational school, we used to have something called voc school, right? Or any kind of outside activities, right? On side of school, extracurricular stuff, you with these people all the time, like all the time. You made friends. Some of these people would come to your house. You do sleepovers. I mean, you just saw these friends repeatedly and consistently for like at least 12 years. So, it's really tough to imagine that you'll never see these people again. And it's very shocking and it's very startling, like how quickly everybody just goes by the wayside. I mean, some people are going to college, some people move, some people get married, whatever the case may be. It is kind of sad and shocking how you just don't see these people every day like you used to. And you really do have to get used to that. Now, a bunch of new people come into your life, but there's that little transition after high school where you're just not prepared for that. And of course, you're used used to it in a way, because in my city anyway, we had a couple of junior highs and we had a college, but we had private schools. So a lot of the kids I went to school in elementary with depending on what part of the city we lived in, we had 2 separate schools we went to. And then some kids were just tossed into private schools. And so they came up alongside us, but we didn't see them every day because they were in private school. Some of them came back to high school when we got there. Some of them stayed in private school, so we all saw each other at least indirectly all the time. But it wasn't like we were in the exact same school all the time, going all the way through to 12. But a lot of us, by the time we get into the high school, and for us, it was different. Some schools are 7 and 8 for junior high, and then 9 through 12. And I think they may have changed that in my city now, but when I was growing up, it was 3 and 3. So it was 7 to 9 and it was 10 to 12. There was a sort of different thing when you went to the new school and you had to learn where everything was and walk around and, all that kind of stuff, or getting oriented with everything. You did kind of understand that a little bit, changing schools from elementary to junior high to high school. So you got a little taste of that, but you sort of didn't. It didn't bother you as much because everybody else was doing the same thing you were, and these are people that you knew. So you went in with people you knew going through it, almost like didn't bother you because everybody was confused and lost. And when you leave and you go to college, and I did not go to college right away, but that had to be shocking for the people that went to college, because now they're not only navigating a new building, but they're navigating a completely different crowd. There's almost, when you think about it, in your state, first of all, you've got people from your state going to the state college, but not from the same city that you are. A lot of them are from another part of the state, because the college is just a different experience. Plus, you've got people coming in from completely different states. Some of them may be coming in from different countries. So you really get a different mix there, right? And so that's all just stuff that you have to understand and navigate. And it's shocking and it's annoying, but it's also stuff that it's good to know, because at some point you're going to start going through jobs and this is what you're going to deal with. Oh, a new building. Where are the bathrooms? Where is the kitchen? Where's the parking lot? Where's my office? Where's my floor? Whatever. Oh, and here's a whole new group of people. It's something you're going to go through your entire life. So you might as well go through it in high school and junior high school and elementary school and college, and get used to the fact that at some point you're going to become a big fish in a little pond and know where everything is with your eyes closed, but it just never lasts. You're going to end up having to leave that environment and go somewhere else and figure out everything all over again. So it's consistent. It's annoying, but at least okay, this is how life is, right? You're gonna also notice that some of your friends will not like that transition. Some people will always want to stay in the same place because they don't like change and they feel comfortable for them. Other people are going to be so restricted and so disgusted by their hometown that they're going to want to get out of there immediately and not want to. Their whole thing is to go find something they've not seen before. They're just so sick and tired of looking at the same town they grew up in. And there's a lot of movies where there's kids that are, oh my God, the small town, I can't stand it. I know everybody here. I need to get out of this town. I need to go do something else. There are people who do that as well. In your town, probably people who have left your small town and gone and done something big. You might know some celebrities from your town that you may have known at that time that said to you, I can't stand it here. I got to get out of here. You also know people who are always in that town. And when you go there, those people are still there. And maybe, I know in my city, a lot of these kids just moved into their parents' houses. We have a lot of what we would call triple deckers, double deckers. We have multifamily houses in not just in my city. They're everywhere, but there were a lot of parents that owned houses that had 2 and 3 floors, 2 and 3 apartments. And so the kids would just move into an apartment upstairs. And then the kids that they had would move an apartment upstairs from that. And everybody's just sort of in the same house and going up and down the stairs inside the house. And that's just kind of their thing. That's, that hometown. I like it here. I'm not going anywhere. I've got people that I'm friends with that I crossed town and went into a different city, and I'm working in the main city of my state. And I've had people from my hometown say, I got on the bridge and crossed it for you to come see you DJ somewhere. And I laugh at that because, it's kind of like for them to go over the bridge was probably 10 minutes and not really much of a drive. But I know I have friends that just don't cross that bridge. Everything they need is in the town we grew up with, and they don't need to leave that town for any reason. And to them, crossing the bridge is a big, major deal. Whereas I also have other friends that live in California that left the city when we graduated, and they live in California, come home every so often, and they couldn't stand to be there as far away as they could get. California or Africa or England or whatever it was. They did that anyway. I digress, as I usually do. So these are the friends that you grew up with. So you keep some of those people. And then there's that neighborhood you live in, right? The kids you grew up with that maybe didn't go to the school you went to, or they went to a school you did, but not when you did. So they're a little older than you, a little younger than you. So you start to get a little collection of friends. And by the time you get out of high school, you maybe have some friends from a pool, a local pool that you go to in the summer, or a park that you visit in the summer, or maybe a little league team that you're on. Plus you have friends that you went to school with. Plus you have maybe like those friends that you made from within your family, or that know people in your family. That your mom goes to some friend of hers house and it's in a different city, and the kids are kids that your age. So you know those kids. I grew up in an apartment complex. Now it sounds crazy, but there was a lot of Section 8 and things like that were going on. But it's the weirdest thing. We kind of loved it because we lived in an apartment where we had a lot of 3-bedroom apartments, and the kids were all kind of around the same age. So not only did we go to school together, we also lived in a building where there were 12 apartments, and every apartment obviously had kids. For a 3-bedroom apartment, those were where the kids went. So we were all in the same building. Our parents all knew each other, and it was a really cool extended family for us to live in an apartment complex like this. Some of those apartments had 2 bedrooms, some of them had 3, and those were all kind of in the same area. So we all just kind of all hung out and played together, and we look at it like, that was a place where maybe single parents went, or divorced people went, or, there were things that went on that some people that really couldn't afford rent, things like that. But we all built and cultivated like a friendship from living in that same area and growing up together as kids. So I have friends from that, just from that apartment. Those people maybe didn't grow up. Some of them did grow up from very young, but a lot of them moved in and out, that kind of thing. And I knew them long enough when they lived there to become friends with them. And even when they moved away, I stayed friends with them. And sometimes I went to their house in another city and stayed over, that kind of thing. So we had that, right? You have that going on. Then when you get older, you start working part-time jobs, paper route, babysitting jobs, whatever. So your jobs start as a kid. At least for me, they did when I was real young. I met people at work. There were people that I met at work. I worked at a theater, in a cinema for a while. I worked, at a drugstore for a while, after school, these like after school jobs or on the weekend jobs, part-time jobs, babysitting. Before I started DJing, these were the jobs I had, and I made certain friends from those jobs, So as time goes on, I collected some friends from each and every environment. Eventually, some of those people, either you cultivate out of your group, or you screen them out because they don't match your energy, and they're just not good or you're just not interested in staying friends with them for whatever reason. Some of them move away. Some of them you lose touch with. It's a crazy thing, but I have probably 10 lives that I've lived at this point between my jobs and all the different places I moved and, the schools I went to and stuff. A good selection of friends from like all kinds of different environments. And as you go on, you just kind of collect the people that work for you. And I mean work for you as in these people are people that I get. They get me. We laugh over stuff that makes sense, or we both understand this particular thing. We're both at this job all the time, so we understand this boss, or we understand this particular product that we sell, or we understand the town we live in, or, whatever it is. You bond over some kind of common what have you, right? So, and then as a DJ, I was in a social environment for 40 years. So I met several people that I worked with. I still stayed in touch. I'm still in touch with several of the DJs I work with. And we really are a small group. A lot of us have never left the state, or we've gone to over one state. I know a lot of DJs that lived here that moved, and some of them are in California, some of them are in New York, some of them are in Arizona, some of them are in Georgia, whatever. So we all stay in touch. And Facebook, it's as much as people hate Facebook, it's really good for keeping in touch with people that just like go out of your individual range, your small circle that you have. It's really good to kind of keep in touch with those people. It's easier to stay in touch with people since Facebook. So I know as much as people hate social media, for me, social media keeps me in touch with people that like I would ordinarily have to like keep track of and try to phone call, and I can sort of peek in on their lives daily, and it's not a huge effort to do that. I don't have to try to figure out where somebody's phone number is and all that kind of stuff that we used to do before Facebook came along. There's that, right? So we go on with the next thing that happens, which is we have several jobs and we have people we work with for years. And so right now you've accumulated social friends, you've accumulated accumulated formative friends, people you've known since you were 3, family friends. You've accumulated school friends, neighborhood friends, work friends. So this is what happens, right? Eventually you'll start getting into things like hobbies. I mean, you go to a gym, you go to the same gym all the time. You'll start meeting and getting to know people at that gym just because you all are there, maybe at the same time all the time. You end up talking because it's the dumbest thing. Like, hey, are you going to use that mat? Are you going to use that barbell? Oh, hey, are you done with that machine? Just dumb stuff like that will cause a friendship to be, and I say dumb meaning like really small, unimportant little things like that, where somebody just says something to someone else and whatever. I know people that met somebody that they rode the bus with at the same time every day, and they just met them and ended up friends with them because they were in that same area at the same time every day, that repetitiveness, right? And they bonded. Or, I know somebody that got married because she met a guy while she was flying. She met a guy in an airplane. They hit it off. They sat next to each other and ended up married for years. So you never know where you're going to meet somebody. You never know who that person is going to become, right? Falling back on Dave's theory of the fruit tree or the fruit plant, where you've planted a seed and it becomes a plant and it goes where it goes, right? Somebody could be your best friend for life and show up at your funeral when you go, and somebody could be your best friend for a week, or somebody could be not your best friend for a week, or you may end up with being friends with somebody for 10 years and something happens and the two of you disagree on something that's not easy to overcome, and so the both of you decide you're going to squash the friendship because it's not worth trying to compromise whatever it is that went on. So that's it, right? You go through your life and you meet friends that way. The reason I bring up how to meet friends and discussing friendship is now that you get into your 20s and 30s, it starts to wane, right? You start to go through a period of new people not coming in. The pipeline starts to get real empty. Depending on what you did with the friendships you had, and that's maybe a judgmental statement or maybe just a factual statement, you will have either plenty of friends so that when you start to lose friends in the pipeline or people start coming down the pipeline and there starts to be less supply of people to befriend, you're not so worried about it. You're like, hey, it depends on what kind of or how many friends you really need. Most of us, 3, 4, 5 friends, we're good, right? I've always had friends from circles that I was in. So I always had a friend for this circle and a friend for that circle and a friend for that circle. Sometimes they ran into each other, sometimes they didn't. So when I went to school, I had the friends I knew from school. So I had friends that were I was close with in that environment. Then if I came home to the neighborhood, I had a smaller area or a smaller region of people around me in my neighborhood. I had very good friends from within that circle. Most of us would just get on bikes and ride around for all day long until we were tired. But anyway, I had the same common group of friends there that we did things together like that. And then my mom had friends in different parts of the state, and she'd go over to their house and they'd hang out, and, I'd hang out with their kids, right? Or my sister's a little younger than me, so there were maybe kids that her age. We'd go over there for a cookout or whatever, and, there would be a bunch of kids. And so there would be that common group of kids that we knew from that sort of thing. You had a bunch of different lives. Again, if I go out and DJ, well, then people from the 5 different circles are going to show up to see me there. And hey, if they all get to know each other, that's even easier for me. So that's fine. Not a requirement, but it's a nice bonus, right? It's more like as you get older and you're trying to figure out how to make friendships, to some degree, at some point, you're going to have to almost make an effort to make friends with people, which, we never have to do, right? Until we're in our 20s or 30s, because it's just always totally accidental. And we just end up with friends with people and that's how it's like, I don't even know how I ended up friends with these people. I don't even know. Well, because you were around them so much and you had to talk to them about common issues, whether it was, what's the test on Friday going to be like? Or, hey, are you going out for the football team? Or, hey, are you trying out for cheerleaders? Or, hey, whatever. Some kind of extracurricular project is going on, yearbooks, staff, or audio visual, or whatever. And you have to talk to people. It's just, and then I think we sort of lose that ability. I mean, we didn't have to seek out people because they were there, but we usually didn't have as much of an issue with making conversation with people that we don't know, right? Now, I do know some people that didn't want to do that with anybody, so I'm not going to speak for everybody about who was okay with talking to complete strangers and who wasn't. But I think in your school, there's that element of these people are not people I know, but they're people that know people I know. I don't know the guy I'm in 7th grade, and I don't know this guy in 8th grade, but I see him all the time and he knows people I know. And so it's never as much of a cold call in school to talk to anybody, because they kind of already know people and you already know enough about them to know whether or not you should bother talking to them and all kinds of stuff like that. Submitted for your approval. If you start to need, or not need, but you start to say, I used to have some friendships, and you have to think about it. Well, we were out and about a lot as we were younger. Now, I'm going to stop and bring up an exception for this generation. I don't know, honestly, if this generation is like we were in the sense that we were always out. We wanted to be out. We didn't want to be home. We didn't want to ever be home. So it was always what's going on, what's going on. Now, consider that we did not have cell phones. We did not have social media. We had one phone in the house, and if we tried to use it, we usually got our asses kicked for tying the phone up. Somebody was calling from somewhere long distance or whatever it was. We would get that crock of shit, whether it was like true and somebody was calling long distance and they didn't want to tie the phone up, or they just didn't want you on the phone, and that was a good excuse to get you to stop trying to use it. We were told, get off the phone, go outside, get on your bike, and go find whoever it is you're looking for and knock on their door to ask whether or not they can come out. Use your legs, go do it that way. So we were told, go find people, go outside and look for them. So that was what we did. I know it's a completely different world now, so I don't know if anybody that's listening that didn't grow up like I did and had social media and had tablets and all that kind of stuff. If you could imagine, for us, our social life was never within the house. Obviously, the most things that we ever had in the house socially was, unless we had party we threw that our parents allowed us to have, it was usually older relatives that were over, and everybody sitting around the kitchen or the dining room and having coffee. And as a kid, it was like extremely, incredibly mundane and boring to be social in that type of structure, right? Or most of us have lost all of our relatives. We would probably love to see them at least once in that environment. But when we're small and we're younger, that's like the worst thing ever. It's like we could fall asleep from the boredom of it, right? So we decide we're going to go out. And when we were young, that's kind of our parents, our elders were like, go. Nobody stopped us. They let us go. We really didn't have much. Our parents didn't do a whole lot of watching what we were doing. We didn't have a whole lot of supervision. We just had to be home by a certain time. If we weren't, then that was when they worried. But if something happened to us, if we had to be home at 8 o'clock at night and something happened to us at 10:30 in the morning, they would not know that. They might be concerned we didn't come back from lunch and get something to eat, but not that concerned. And around 8 o'clock at night, when we don't come back, like at that point is when they panic and realize somebody's missing or something's wrong, right? That's just the way it was. And we didn't have the means to find people that weren't within our earshot. So I'm coming off the heels of the parents that were outside screaming at their kids or screaming for their kids at 8 o'clock at night, and you had to be within earshot or you just were punished. That was just the way it was, right? But we didn't know anything else. Anyway, that kind of life that we lived at that point, we didn't have a social outlet within the house. I mean, we could only get on the phone maybe and try to talk to people. But, our parents were always telling us, shoo, get off the phone. The phone, it's important. Somebody could be trying to call, right? It was different where we didn't. Now there are kids that don't have to leave the house for social activity for several reasons. One, computers. Two, phones. There's always somebody that you can talk to. And there's always chat rooms and a bunch of stuff like that going on where you don't have to leave your house and you can go in your room and talk to like 100 people without a problem. We didn't have that luxury. We had to leave the house and go seek out people. That was it. So we were always trying to get out. We were always trying to be not home and always trying to figure out where everybody was at and what was going on. So to some degree, our social life was different because I personally believe it was a little bit different because we had to be in the company of people. I mean, there was no other way for us to socialize when we were kids but to go find a group of people and be amongst those people. I had like a gymnastics at some point. There were a bunch of girls and I did gymnastics and gymnastic meets and things like that. So that was one outlet. You know what I mean? Like there were just things like that, school dances, field trips, and all kinds of things that we went on that we were more excited about as kids because this meant we could get away from our parents and go be around other kids, which we just didn't have the opportunity to do unless we left our house, right? As we got older, it was the same thing. I would say like in the 90s, in the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, it was the same thing. We had to go to nightclubs. We had to go to parties. We had to go in order to see our peers. We had to go find them. It's going to be a very different lifestyle for us compared to the kids now because the kids now don't need to do that. They don't have to get in their car. They don't have to get in their car and leave. They can, but they don't need to. They can talk to everybody that they already know without leaving their bedroom, right? So that's a big difference. But I think we got socialized differently because of that, right? And so we ended up with a lot of more friends that we probably got along with in a different way just because we were in their company a lot. At that point, you got to figure it's easy to make friends, but then at some point that wanes, right? The social activity, I don't know whether we burn out on it or just at a certain point in our lives, we just end up in different circles where we're not doing the same type of socializing. We're usually getting together with people we already know, and those people may drop out for, again, different reasons. I will say to you, I'll submit to you that, as you get older, you're going to have to figure out if you want new friends, if you want to keep the pipeline going, you're going to have to do two things. And The two things I always say are the good passport to life is one, you can go anywhere by yourself without a problem. And I don't mean not safely. I mean, you don't have to have a chaperone. You don't have to be with someone else or be with a group of people to go places. You want to see a band, you go. You want to go to a restaurant, try it out, see if it's any good, you go. You know, you want to go hiking, skiing, whatever it is that you want to do, safely, of course, so that you're not going to end up on the first 48, but you know how to safely go do things by yourself. You don't wait for other people to go do things with you. The second thing is being able to make conversation with anybody. If you get those two tools under your belt, you could pretty much do anything you want. You know, that's kind of, there's like a life restriction that lifts when you have those two things as a skill set. Now, there may be reasons that you have that skill set that, you know, just sort of happen naturally. I have friends in the restaurant business. Those are people who can just walk up to anybody and talk to them about anything because they're so used to doing it as part of their job. So when they're not on their job, they don't know how not to do that. Or people that are salespeople or people that are in real estate, right? Those are people that can kind of walk up to anybody, kind of gauge who they're talking to, kind of throw out a line that makes sense and go into a conversation with that person. A skill to learn, but it's tough if you don't know it, and you kind of have to, the only way to learn it is to do it, is to feel people out as you're talking to them. Feel out whether or not they still want to talk to you, they're interested in what you're talking about, or they're even just the type of people that you want to speak to. There are some people that you really like, you know what up, this person's interested in talking with me, but I think I've lost interest in continuing with them. You can feel them out with the conversation, right? You can politely say, well, all right, you can end the conversation and move on with your day and say, okay, well, I dipped my toe in the water and I decided I feel like going swimming in that pool, whatever. You're going to have to come off of the couch or you're going to have to come off the wall at some point and actually make an effort towards bonding with people. And that's usually where most people get stuck. Well, I didn't used to have to do this. Well, no, it doesn't mean anything except that like you didn't have to do it before because it was like it was unnecessary to have to do that before. You were amongst 3, 4, 5, 600 of your peers. And there was just like no way not to end up bonding with people. So I know I don't want to point out the obvious, but some people really don't think about stuff like that. Yes, it's harder to make friends in my older years, but the reason it is because I'm not around, 1,000 of my peers constantly, and I'm not in a common environment with my peers constantly. And you get to be my age, sometimes you do kind of like to hang out by yourself. And for the people that I don't see all the time that think that I have somebody better to talk to than them, or I'm more excited about something other than them, it's really not that. I just kind of like to be home. I like to just kind of be doing my thing. And it really is a huge effort for me to get off my ass and throw clothes on and go out somewhere. And when I do, that's why I go crazy and try to make sure everybody's out with me, because it's like so sporadic when it happens. And it's like, I don't know when it's going to happen again. Could be another month, could be another 2, because to me, there's just so much energy I got to put into going out that it used to be easy for me to do, and I used to want to get out of the house. But I personally think being a DJ has burnt me out of that. I've never had to go out to be out. I have gone out and enjoyed it and loved it, but it's always been a little bit of an effort for me because I was already out most of the time. And so especially in my 20s, I was working 5 nights a week, 5 days a week. When I was in radio, I was working overnight at radio stations and like half, working part-time in a record store and DJing 3 or 4 nights on the weekends. And so I was always around people, always. So I didn't really need to like pick a day and go out clubbing independent of my job because I was already out there. And I think that's the difference. If I wasn't DJing all the time, I probably would have been more interested in going out. And I went out with my friends and, we'd get in a car and go here, go there, take a couple weeks off, go to Florida and go clubbing. And we did all that. So it's not like I never did, but I didn't have the need to, as like some of my friends that I went out to, they needed to get out. They needed to dance. I got to go. I got to be around people. Because they didn't see it all the time, but for me, I think I burnt it out a lot by just being in that environment already, getting my fill. I happen to have like this limit of peopling that I can do. I was peopled out quite frequently most of my life. I think I started going out and DJing in clubs when I was 16. So for me, going on close to 40 years of that, I don't have a shortage of people that I run into or see. Now, when I was younger, it was cool because I could go out to clubs and I would run into people that I knew all the time, and I'd probably not pay cover charge a whole lot and things like that. Go see DJs that I knew that were playing out. And that was kind of cool. And again, I did have probably until my 40s a plethora of pipeline coming down of people that I met in different environments just because of my job. And I think I kind of got an extended version of that just because I was out doing the job I was doing longer and being around people longer than most people are in their lives, right? Same thing with bartenders, same thing with waitresses. There are people who work in the service industry that they're just going to meet more people by default because that's what they do for a living. And so if you work in an office with the same 4 people and you don't really need to see customers or anything like that, you don't see any foot traffic, it can get very stale. And I understand that. For me, my office life was almost like a haven for me because my second job was like a constant barrage of people. If you're looking for new friends, the best thing to do is you have to think about it. Say, okay, well, do I have friends? How important is it for me to like add friends to my life? How happy am I with the friends I have? You need to cultivate your friends to be healthy for you, right? The next thing that I wanted to bring up, I got into the family. I got into school, work, hobbies, interests. These are places where you find people that you gel with, jobs, your social life. And then there's the mutuals. There's people that you know, and then there's people that they know, and you meet a lot of people just through other people. Let's say you have 50 people you know. You want to cut them down to like a good 10 that are like people that get you, right? And you get them. Obviously, it's got to be a two-way street. So you don't ever want to have friends that are healthy for you and do things for you and you're not reciprocating. Obviously, it should be a two-way street. You definitely have to be strategic and make an effort. Decide whether you want to leave the house on certain days. Maybe you put it in your schedule, right? There's a lot of things you could do outside the house. My problem is everything I do, I can do solo. I don't necessarily have anything that I do that requires other people. That's probably not good for me. I probably should find something that I can't do without other people because I don't see a lot of people because of that. Again, I do work as a DJ, so I see them anyway, so I'm not that worried about it. But I think that's what I would do is find hobbies and things that have people that like what I like, whether it's a cooking class or CrossFit or like hiking or paint by numbers with wine or whatever it is. Just something that you do every week that you enjoy and other people are there that enjoy what you do. And there's somewhat of a similarity in age between you and the people that you see on this weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is. Some people love photography. Some people go around, do bird watching, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. I met so many people in yet another life, being that I have a Rottweiler and that I have so many friends that are like Rottweiler owners. It's just like we have a very big, it's like a Volkswagen bug group, or whatever you want to call it. We all just have this particular type of dog. And there are several groups on Facebook that are just Rottweiler groups. I belong to a lot of them. And then because of that, I've ended up with a lot of friends that have Rottweilers that are local. We get together once in a while or whatever it is, or sometimes just a big dog group, that kind of thing. That's another outlet. Or, there's people, I don't do it anymore because at least the dog I have now isn't necessarily great for these dog parks, but my last one was. And so there was a dog park group that developed. And if you all go to the same dog park, I know there's one in my state where there's a bunch of people that go to the dog park. They have a Facebook group. They discuss the dog park in the Facebook group. What's the grass like? What's the, has anybody seen, what it looks like there? Did they turn the water on yet? Whatever it is. And they all kind of get together and talk in that group about that dog park, right? It's just an example of like a place, a topic, a thing where a bunch of people can kind of gather and bond based on some common what have you, right? So something like that is always a good thing to do. Then you want to understand like the characteristics of the people that you're dealing with, right? So maybe you had family members that you didn't really particularly like and you cut out of your life, or they're not in your life anymore, but for natural reasons, but you're looking to not repeat those kind of relationships, right? You cultivate, it's essential that you surround yourself with one, at least in my case, I can't speak for everybody, but in my case, I like people around me that I can learn from. If I can't learn from people around me, I think I become stagnant and frustrated. So I have to have people around me that are articulate, that are writers, that are readers, that are intelligent. I want to constantly be learning from the people around me. And if I feel like I'm the smartest person in a group, I'm miserable about that. I don't like it. Not everybody's that way. I've noticed that there are some people out there that really don't want to be the smartest, or that always want to be the smartest in the room. And if they're not, those are opposite people. I'm not going to gel with people like that unless they're okay with being smart, but they're not assholes about it. And, somehow or other, I create a bond with them based on that. But for the most part, I really like somebody that has the same mindset that I have, where we're both seeking out knowledge and we're both curious about the way things work. That's kind of a trait that I admire in people. There are people that I've known over the years that don't always have that trait, but they do sort of indirectly have it, or there's something about them that we bond and they do sort of, or at least around me, they it rubs off on them. I like ambitious people. I like people who want to get stuff done. There's a bunch of people that I have around me that like they feed, not to be corny, but they feed my soul in the sense that they're people that they get me. They don't try to change me into something I'm not. They have traits that I find characteristics or I find admirable and that I love. There's things about them that make them that are important to me. And I don't know, I would hope there's things about me that make me that they find important, but I honestly don't ask them these things. They tell me, great. If not, that's fine. But in the general, we don't have to all be the same, but we have to understand how the other person thinks and lives. And, we just have to, there are people that are going to come along in your life that are going to try to make you like them and make you act like them and think like them. I don't really understand that. I don't understand people that like everybody has to be exactly like them around them. I don't know what that is. I like a diverse group of people. I like different opinions. I like different personalities. I don't want to make them like me, and I don't want them to think I should be like them. I just want to be understood and loved and appreciated where I'm at. I'm more than willing to do the same for everyone else, especially people that I'm really close with. Complete strangers, that's another story. But people I'm close with, that I've known for 30 years, 20 years, those people are who they are, and I love them and want to be around them because that's who they are, because of who they are, that I want them in my life. If I didn't, I would have a long time ago eliminated them from my life, but they are who they are, and they fill whatever it is that they are and they do fills that like part of my life that I didn't get as a kid, right? So anyway, you basically want to make sure you want to have a partner and you want your partner to be good and you want everything to work out that way, but you really need to have a good network of friends, of social outlets and friends, and different types of, you want a diverse patchwork of friendship. That's probably the best way to go, right? Somebody that's always maybe around that you can hang out with. Somebody that feeds different parts of what you enjoy. There are people that I'll sit and have coffee with, and that's our thing. We just have coffee. That's our thing, right? And sure, we talk about the world and whatever, but like our common goal is that we have a cup of coffee together and we just talk about whatever, what's going on, what's been going on, life, the world, whatever. There's certain people that I talk to about music. I'll get together with some people and we talk about music, and that's all we do. It's just music. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? We'll play songs and listen to them, find musical structures, break down, arrangements and all that kind of stuff. And then there's some people that I just talk about movies with, and we just sit and we talk about different movies that have come out, actors and different people in different movies. I'm not a celebrity follower, but I do like movies, and there's certain things that I enjoy, and it's just like my guilty pleasure. And I have friends that enjoy that sort of thing. And so that's what I do with those people. There's some people I go hiking with, and that's their thing. Or there's some people that, we go out to eat somewhere and we enjoy that. Or we go play tennis and we enjoy that. So have somebody in your life that that you bond with over different types of things. You don't want all your friends to be from the gym. You don't want all your friends to be from school. You don't want all your friends to be from work or your neighborhood or anything like that. A little bit of everything. It's just better for you, right? And then you go through there and you kind of cultivate out, or you kind of screen out the people that don't work for you. And I don't mean that they should serve you or that it's all about you in any way, but there are some people that will come along and they will make your energy worse. They will create stuff in your life that you don't need. Right? So you want to let those people go by the wayside. Hey, it was nice to know you. We'll remain acquaintances. If ever we need to talk about this specific thing, then we'll get together. I've got your number, you've got mine, but we don't necessarily need to be bonding and close and hanging around together 24/7 or a lot. It's not something, that's not the type of friendship this is. And that's fine. Not all of them have to be close friendships or long-term friendships. Anyway, those are the things I wanted to discuss about friendship, meeting friends, your life, and how you meet friends as you're a kid, as you grow up, and then how to meet friends as you're older, and then the types of friends to have around. I'm just going to summarize everything that I've already said. The kind of friends that you want, the characteristics that you want in friends that you have, the things that you want them to bring to you, and things that you want to be able to bring to them. You want to obviously serve their life in some way. You don't want everybody to be serving you. You want to have a friendship where you give them, you can contribute to something for them that works for them, something that they don't get anywhere else, or something that is important to them, right? So again, always a two-way street, but I would say find something once a week. Again, it's only important to certain people to find new friends and bring new friends in. If that's not you, that's okay. It's okay if you don't want to do that. I think you should do what you want to do in life, not what somebody tells you should be doing. But if you do, that's the best way to kind of maybe do it. Find something that works for you once a week that you enjoy, and that there may be other people there that enjoy it. There's no downside to that. You enjoy a thing. that you get to do once a week. It's good for you. It's always good to get into a hobby and enjoy something on the side of your job, on the side of you being home. But there's always that open option of somebody that may be there as well, that you both understand and get the same thing. And maybe your personalities will bond and coincide over things outside of that hobby. So that's what I'm going to say, right? Your social circles dictate the type of friendship you have. If you don't like the people that you're running into, I would suggest that you change your environment, you change your hobbies, you adjust, you do something different. Find different people. Go to a different place. There's so many different places out there that there's really no way to not be able to do that, right? Unless I don't know anybody that is in a situation where they can't change their environment, especially if they're able-bodied and they're able to get in their car and go do something. But even online, there's always different places now, different communities that you can find. So there's always a way to find different people if you need to change it up. That's that. If you have any questions, of course, check us out, www.lanaanddave.com. That is where all our platforms are, all of your podcast platforms, and then also all of our social media platforms. So send us a message there if you have anything that you want to talk to us about, or you have any comments on anything that you've heard, or there's anything you actually would like to have us discuss. Download and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a 5-star review if you can. That helps. Downloading and subscribing helps big time for other people to find the podcast. That'd be really great. And in the meantime, I want you to enjoy your summer 2024, and I will be back soon with another riveting topic, but you have a good day. All right. Thanks for hanging in and thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.